Elizabeth Warren is in Atlanta, hot Atlanta, Chocolate City. While she's in Chocolate City, she's giving a speech. And during that speech, she's heckled remorselessly. People waving signs. Something about pro-charter school contingent. And I had to read that twice. Pro-charter school contingent. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound dicey at all. That sounds totally on the level. And then, but of interest is what happens with Warren. She freezes, doe in headlights, and has to be rescued by Ayanna Pressley. The amazing part of this is this wasn't debate prep by Ayanna Pressley, but you must hear how Ayanna Pressley grabs the audience within a few seconds. Warren was frozen. Like, and people on Twitter were like, oh my God, she's going to lose to Trump. They were like, oh God. Oh, this is a horrible choice. This is a horrible choice. So let's look at it, but let's watch it. But there's a twist on this. And believe it or not, involves Buttigieg. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Soapbox After Dark. Guys, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. This video will be relatively quick. I just thought this video was interesting in regards to what may be going on. If I am part of a political campaign, let's say I was part of Sanders' campaign, and let's say there was a section of the campaign that was separate from the candidate themselves. Let's call that section 31. Pick a number out of our head. And section 31, explicit purpose was to do things to help the candidate, but things that may look bad on the candidate and that the candidate shouldn't know about. But your mandate was to work in the best interest of the candidate. Meaning there's a separation wall between you and the campaign, but you are working at the best interest of the campaign. And if you are captured in the process of that, you must disavow all knowledge of the fact that you work for section 31. Burn notice. I am not above sending, let's say if Joe Biden is going somewhere, I am not above sending a group of people who were part of the deportations that is very angry at Biden and that want to stand there and yell at Joe Biden to make him look bad in front of the media. Call me a bad guy. I'm not against that. Nor am I against asking reporters or asking people difficult questions, meaning sending people to town halls, maybe several, paying them handsomely, to ask very specific questions of the candidate in the town hall with the expressed interest of making the candidate look bad, especially for something that the candidate don't want to answer or just wants to hide, and the media wouldn't pick it up on their own. Meaning I need to use the media as a weapon to kind of make this work. I would think of all sorts of creative ways to go after my candidate in my campaign. In this very specific instance, somebody else has decided to do the same thing to Warren. I don't know any grassroots pro-charity school thing. I do know that there are people in this country that can make a lot of money off of charter schools, usurping the role of the public sector in this case. And in making that lot of money from public sector schools, may do things to try to push forward their objectives because, again, they can make a profit off of it. If the candidate is against your interests, then you may go and try to rattle the candidate. It's not grassroots. It is a plutocrat somewhere, some oligarchic group that dislikes the campaign or dislikes what this candidate is talking about because it will either stop them from making a buck or hurt them. Meaning either it removes money from their pockets or it stops them from making a buck in a different way. This group, African American, pro-charter school group, comes there and heckles Warren. From my tone, you can tell that, yes, they're paid off. They're essentially a group sent by the Walton family, and believe it or not, one of Buttigieg's donors to rattle Warren on this very specific instance of charter schools. She doesn't know what to do. She is literally frozen. Like she's frozen. Like she's... Let's keep going. I mean, she has more freeze left in her. Wow. She doesn't know what to do. Ayanna Pressley has to come from her seat to rescue her.
I want to say
By this. I'm not a big fan, to be honest, of stopping people and stopping their speech. Like, I think it can go to weird ways. Like, so imagine for the moment if somebody goes and heckles Romney, then somebody heckles Obama, and then every time somebody goes and does a campaign event, it's not just heckling, but it's with the intention of trying to stop that person from being able to deliver their campaign speeches. I think that can go into horrible, horrible places. And all things being equal, I want people to be able to do their campaigning. Let's hear her. Warren is rattled. She doesn't know what to do. She's a deer in headlights. Ayanna Pressley has to get up from her seat, come up to help Warren. This wasn't debate prep from Ayanna, but listens to how she just takes the crowd.
Something. No one is here to quiet you, least not this black woman, who know what it is when people have tried to put me in a corner and tell me to be silent. You are welcome here. The senator is here to talk about the contributions fighters like you have made to history. So in this moment...
Listen, like, look at that. Honestly, I saw that and I was like, wow. Wow. I was fucking impressed by that. Like, they are there for the specific interest of rattling Warren. That's their job. That's what they're literally paid to go there to do. We want you to go and interrupt her speech. Make her have a horrible day. That's what we are doing. Here's money to go and do it. Here's money, go do it. Ayanna Pressley comes up and says, fighters like you who are paid by plutocrats. But she doesn't know that they're paid by plutocrats at this particular moment. And this notion of a it just sounds ridiculous. She grabs the audience and uses them because they're protesters and saying, you guys are fighters. Yes, you're here being a pain in my ass right now, but you're fighters nonetheless. And I am not trying to silence your speech. You're welcome here. And people and fighters like you. She literally grabbed the crowd. She grabbed the crowd. Yeah, that's not good. You got to be able to handle that. I mean, I've watched Obama handle that. Here's another angle on this. Right here. They're talking about charter schools. They're pro-charter school. They're screaming, our choice, our choice. Look, personally, I am public school. I am pro-public school. In fact, I am pro-public school to the point that I am sketchy on this notion of charter schools even existing. If you want to, I don't want my money or the state's money being dumped into these private schools. Fix up the schools, fix up the neighborhoods. This notion of, okay, we're going to save this one kid. What about the other 1,000 kids? They're in that shitty school. Fix the school, fix the school. This notion of saving 1 or 2 kids is not the issue. The issue is your particular community and that particular school and making sure that those schools are up to snuff. I know how my schools were. And I had the opportunity when I was playing in a chess tournament. There's a school up here, Manchester, white school. I've only been to black schools. And their elementary school looked like our high school. Like, there's a disparity there that you see it from the standpoint of the textbooks versus their textbooks, the look of the building versus the look of our buildings, all those things. You can see it. The disparity is there. Now, the notion of taking 3 kids out of that school and sending it to, I don't know, a private school, that's great for those 3 kids. Those 3 kids may love it. What about the other kids? They don't deserve the opportunity also? Meaning, the only way you're going to get that opportunity at a reasonable price. At a reasonable price. Meaning, you're not fucking over your teachers and anything else by having them work at a charter school where they're going to be making less and the outcomes for the most part are the same. I don't see their point of their existence outside of draining money from the city coffers. So, this notion of pro charter school protesters, that's just funny to me. So, right here, they said they raised money on GoFundMe. Well, yeah, but most of that money, they got a lot of $1,000 checks from somewhere. $1,000 checks. The leader of the protest is Sarah Carpenter, whose organization is funded by the Walton Foundation. Essentially billionaires. They're paid by billionaires. The organization is 100% funded by the Walton Foundation. Carpenter had claimed to reporters that the group started organically a few weeks ago in response to Warren's charter school plan. They formed organically, all right, when they were getting a lot of money in order to form. Formed organically around the incentives built into getting money to form an organization to harass the shit out of Warren. So Warren says she met with him after and they had a nice conversation. Waltons are the sole funders of one of Carpenter's groups, but the other pro-charter money seems to be sloshing around. Now listen to this. The protesters who interrupted Warren are funded by Jeb and supported by the California Charter Association, which is heavily funded by Netflix founder and anti-union crusader Reed Hastings, who recently hosted a high-dollar fundraiser for Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Mayor Pete Buttigieg. That's funny. That's funny. Now, whether Pete had anything to do with it or not, whether they're... Honestly, I strongly suspect what this is about is this notion that Warren has been picking a fight with billionaires. Now, Sanders has always said billionaires shouldn't exist. But Warren has been pretending to be a socialist in this case, and so she's been upping her rhetoric on this stuff while behind the scenes taking money, by the way. But, sharpening her rhetoric on this. And some of those billionaires were pissed off by it. And if Warren is indeed putting some kind of, ban on charter schools or whatever she's talking about in this, well, those guys are looking at charter schools as a way of profit. Their goal is to maximize profit. They do this in all sorts of ways. Breaking and destroying public structures. One of those public structures being public schools. If you can have a charter school and essentially subsume the roles of public schools, well, at this point now you have kids who have to pay, or the state paying a handsome fund in order for your schools. Essentially, you allow somebody at the very top to make a lot of money for outcomes that are not any better. Maggie Smith, they cherry pick students and use poor parents like slave labor. Rich can just donate money instead. They really don't cover special needs either. Yeah, I mean, public schools, everybody is open, everybody is welcome. They take them all. The goal of it is not to maximize profit. The goal of it is to educate your kids. Now, they may find different ways of doing that, but ultimately understand the goal of charter schools is profit. First and foremost, the goal of a charter school is profit. The goal of a public school is education of your kid. There are differences in those things. And I'm saying this as somebody who, there was a period in my life, but for whatever reason, they couldn't find a good public school for me, or a good school for me. And so I think I started off at like a Meadoway Christian school. That went bad when the teacher told us we were going to go to hell. I was still making A's, don't misunderstand me, but she explicitly told us we were going to hell. I was in detention every fucking day. And I hated that woman. I couldn't stand that woman. So my mom ends up taking me to another school. It's like AV-NAR, then the big one, the small one. I ended up in Murray Mumford. Like it was like just a really weird, heady period where I ended up in all these schools. Grades were always fine. The private school wasn't any better. In fact, it was worse. I mean, ultimately, it's a religious school, which means that you're just getting a lot of nonsense within the context of any education that you get. But it's not better. The test scores are not better. The outcomes are not necessarily better. Cherry picking a few students and taking them away from a school gets across that you have a problem with that school. And if you have a problem with that school and you still have kids going to that school, then the cherry picking the 3 is not really doing much for the other people that are in the school. It looks like the goal would be you need to fix the school. You can't fix that school if you have a community around that school that is falling apart. Meaning, in order to nurture the school, you got to fix the community. Like some of the stuff is issues of class, it's poverty. All right, I'm gonna end this because it's like late, and I gotta be honest, I'm starving, and I may even make a food run. So, like, share, and subscribe.